I took the template that I gave you for essay assignment 1 and created an introductory paragraph with 2 body paragraphs. So on the left here is the template that I downloaded from the essay assignment 1, and on the right is the beginning of my paper. So you can see how I took this template, I saved it as my own, and then I just plopped in my own information on top of here. For the title, I came up with Money You Got versus Money You Need, the bankruptcy of dreams and stories from the tenants downstairs. The first thing that you want to have in your introductory paragraph is the hook. So this is something that's a broad idea and you want to get your reader's attention. So I used the idea of housing prices increasing, and I wrote, it's no secret that housing costs in the New York City metropolitan area have outpaced wage growth over the past decade. I could have just left it there, but recently I've heard a few things that I thought these facts would support my main idea. So I did a little bit of research online and I used what I found there. If you do any research, you have to make sure how to cite it. So if you end up doing research, stay tuned at the end of this video and I'll explain how to create citations. This harsh economic reality affects every character in Stories from the Tenants Downstairs, Sadiq Fofana's 2022 debut short story collection about a group of people living in a public housing building in Harlem that has just been sold to a private developer. So right after you bring up this big idea, you have to immediately transition to the literary work that you're discussing. So the transition connects the big idea you present in the hook with the literature that you discuss in the essay. Here, you always need to give the name and author of the literary works and any major points, such as where it takes place, when it was written, and maybe what it's about. The goal is to write an essay about a work of literature that anybody can read and understand, even somebody who has not read the work of literature. One of my professors in graduate school used to advise us to write as if your audience is your very intelligent 13-year-old cousin. Your 13-year-old cousin doesn't know as much as you do. They probably haven't read as much as you do, but they are smart enough to understand. You just need to give them the information. So that sentence that I just read, starting with this harsh economic reality, that's my transition sentence where I connect the big idea, basically rent is too damned high, with the literary work. And I give the author, date of publication, the title, and a really quick snapshot of what it's about. Now, you might want to use a quote from the text to further support how this work of literature supports your big main idea. So I wrote, in particular, 2 characters, Mimi and Derry, take desperate measures that conflict with their values. Here's my quote. As Derry's aunt used to tell him, quote, "You can sell whatever you want, but it's over when you start selling you," end quote. This is the in-text citation. I will explain that at the end of the video. And here, immediately after you transition, you bring in the quote, then you get to your motive. And your motive is really important in an introductory paragraph. And this is where you establish why what you are writing about is important. So, as a lead into that, I wrote, Mimi and Derry must put their dreams aside and betray their ethics to try and get enough money to keep up with their rent increases. And when I'm doing motive, I like to just go out and say it. I just like to say these stories are important, or this is an important concept because. So I wrote, these stories are important because They voice the personal tragedies that happen to regular people when for-profit ventures take over public services. I could do more with motive here, but I think that's enough. I think I've established that these stories are important because they're showing what happens to people who get squeezed out in specific types of economies. For my thesis statement, I just used one of the thesis statements that we came up with during the thesis statement workshop. Remember, your thesis statement is always going to be an opinion that is true but arguable. That means that it's an opinion that you can support with available evidence from the text, but it is something that somebody else can reasonably disagree with. And it is never a question, and it is never simply a statement of fact. This is the thesis statement I am using. In Rent Manual and Camaraderie, the protagonist struggles between their dreams and economic realities exemplify the destructive effects of capitalism. In my body paragraphs, I have to demonstrate how the evidence in the literary text supports this. So I created one body paragraph here and another one after this. So I have two body paragraphs about Rent Manual, and then I would come up with a different one about Camaraderie, and then I would go straight to my conclusion. So just to show you how body paragraphs are constructed, I'm going to use the first one I came up with. So here you have Mimi in Rent Manual is an optimistic single mother determined to improve her life through material goods and hard work despite her looming eviction and rent increase. This right here is the topic sentence. This tells the reader what the paragraph is going to be about. And then every body paragraph is built around evidence. So somewhere in the middle of the body paragraph, you're always going to have, in literary analysis essays, you will always have a quote from the text, and you will also reference things that happen in the text. Since you're writing to somebody who has not necessarily read the story, you do have to give a little bit of background. So I write, the story is punctuated by Mimi's assessment of how much money she has versus how much she needs, which creates an immediate tension in readers. And then I go on and I give some details about the story that I think are important before I get into the quote. As she explains to a social worker commenting on her expensive TV, I worked real hard and I can buy whatever I want. This is the in-text citation, which I will explain at the end of this video. This is how I'm taking the evidence I've just given the reader and I'm connecting it to my thesis statement, which is about the destructive effects of capitalism. So I wrote, Mimi, like many consumers, sees her spending power as a just reward for her labor, and she buys items that represent the life she wants rather than the life she has, even though buying them puts her in difficult financial situations. So that's one body paragraph. And then I create another body paragraph using the same technique with evidence at the beginning, topic sentence in the evidence in the middle, topic sentence in the beginning, and analysis at the end. I'm going to jump forward to show you how to create works cited entries, and if you use only the book, I've already created one for you on the template. So every time you use a quote from the text, after the quote, you put in parentheses the author's last name, Fofana, and the page number. Here it's page 6. Down here it's page 25. You'll notice that the way you punctuate it is the quote ends, then you put the parentheses. There's no comma in between the last name of the author and the page number. Then you end the parentheses, and then you put the punctuation for the sentence. So this is the only time you put the punctuation for the sentence inside the exclamation points, or if it's something like an exclamation point or a question. But if it's just a period, you wait until the parentheses ends before you put the punctuation in. If you do use outside research, make sure that it is legitimate, that it's, so for example, when we use Google now, it automatically goes to AI. And what I noticed when I was doing research is AI was giving me information that was not correct. So I went to the actual websites that it was pulling from. So if you're using outside research, just make sure that you're using a citation generator. It's really easy to find one. Just type it in, and a bunch of them are going to come up. And then you put the link that you're using into the citation generator. You want to make sure to double check it though, because when I did these two, they both came out wrong. So I had to I had to give some corrections. Again, you do not have to use outside citations or outside research. I would actually prefer if you didn't. However, if you really want to, you can. Just make sure that you're citing it correctly. So that's all I have for you in this video. Feel free to email me or come to class with questions about the essay, and I'm happy to help you.